Hi, everyone.
Have a little snow out
Hello.
there.
Yeah.
Anybody been skiing?
Yeah, I broke some trail today.
Thank you.
You're
Nice.
welcome. I did the loop. I went out to the loop. You know,
Ah,
when you go past the little lumber yard, you go by the gate. When I got
yeah.
up to the lumber yard, nobody had broken the trail, so I broke it all the way up towards Brushy.
Did you do the lollipop?
That's it, the lollipop. Yeah, I was pretty exhausted when I got back,
Good.
but it's broken. You're welcome.
Thank you.
I did the other kind of skiing,
Oh,
Good
the
for
easy
you.
kind. The
You'll be
kind that
doing that
doesn't
for the next
involve
few
you
months.
being exhausted at the end of the day.
mm. No, I have not
Um,
done that in years.
So Molly's coming, right?
yeah, I think so. Jim did email me, or maybe he emailed everyone. He's out tonight, but I'm gonna give Molly another minute. All right, well, maybe we'll just get started. I'll call the FinCom to order at 6:31. Let's see, I think this is set to automatically record, I believe.
And don't forget the AI minutes too.
Yeah. Let's see. I think I set it to automatically start
Good.
that. Yeah.
I generally don't need it, but it can be helpful.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So first order of business is to review the proposed FY27 budget for the police department. And we have our acting chief, Devin,
Oh,
is it
boy. He's,
Pelletier?
he's not acting anymore, I
Not
don't.
That's
acting
right.
anymore.
That's
No.
official, right?
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Our official police chief, Devin Pelletier. Chief, thanks for joining us. I'm going to pull up your the budget you prepared, which I think is going to be a lot more straightforward than last year's. I mean, the police budget last year was complicated discussion. Let's see.
I may have made a fix to it. I'm not.
Okay, so you can alert me to that as we walk through it.
Yeah.
And I'll make the changes like in real time on my document here. So, okay, so first of all, just let me know, does this look like
Yeah. No, there's
the current version?
the for fiscal 27 budget amount for chief salary. That's going to
Yeah.
be 84,412.
All right, 84, 412. Okay, because now obviously that was a placeholder that was in there before. So I'm
Correct.
assuming this is the exact amount in the contract. Yep.
For fiscal 27. Yeah.
Yeah, great.
Um,
Good.
and the only other thing that changed is for operating. I would like to bring it to 25.
Okay. Okay.
So that doesn't change the formula at the bottom, does it?
Yeah, I think this is not set to
Does.
total. So let's do that. Is that the total you have on your end, Devin? 274, 618?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Got it. Good. Okay. Just a quick question on the holiday pay. Is this because I've got a note here that this was a placeholder. Are we sticking with that amount for now?
Yeah. I mean, contractually, I don't expect that it will be that amount. I'm just not sure what amount to put in there. I expect it to be less.
Okay.
I'm just unsure of really what we should have in there.
Okay. Can you I'm trying to wrap my brain around this. I knew the answer to this at one point, but can you remind us what that budget line refers to? Is that holiday pay for the entire staff, or is that for
No,
particular?
it's just for the chief.
It's-
I believe, yeah, because holidays aren't worked into the contract. So
Okay.
essentially, it would be pay on top of your normal salary to work a holiday, but also contractually, you can use that time for time off.
Got it.
The as far as any holiday time that's for officers, that's absorbed under the police officer wages
Okay.
line. So I
Got it.
believe
So-
that's just reserved for the chief.
So this is just for the chief. And just so I'm clear, because it's helpful to have a clear understanding of what this represents. So this is compensation for any holidays that you end up working, or you can also utilize this budget for sort of flex time, that kind of a thing, or
Yeah. If I worked the holiday,
Uh-huh.
I'd get compensated from that budget, but in lieu of getting financially compensated, I'd have the option to take the time.
I see. Got it.
So
Okay.
it wouldn't come out of that budget.
Okay, got it. Okay. Thank you for clarifying. Okay. So I think this is the first time you've joined us for one of these reviews. So really appreciate you taking the time. And basically what we typically do here is ask the department head to kind of walk us through the budget kind of line by line and just give us a kind of brief explanation of particularly if there are any changes that from the previous year's budgeted amount, and that can be in the positive or negative direction. So some of this is going to be very straightforward, so it's not like we need a long comprehensive explanation, but just it's helpful for us to kind of walk through your thinking and rationale for each of these amounts. So would you like to kind of get this started by just, I guess, going from top to bottom here?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
I think we talked about the chief's salary. That's contractual, and the holiday pay. That's a placeholder. It's kind of arbitrary. I really just use the fiscal 26 amount because I'm not sure what to put in there, to be honest with you. As far as officer wages, I took a deep dive into that, and one, because the contract, there'll be an additional 3% raise for the officers, but we will be able to stay within that number, so that wouldn't have to increase for fiscal 27. Then we're into a new contract, so who knows what for fiscal 28, but it'll be tight, but it's very doable to meet that number or underneath it, and still leave a little bit of wiggle room for emergencies, forced overtime for different things, arrests, etc. Then in longevity bonuses, we don't have anybody eligible this year for longevity bonuses, so that's not an issue. I see Susie has her hand raised.
Oh,
but-
Susie.
But when you're doing officer wages, what is the staffing model? How many people are you intending or do you see in the department for this FY27?
Thank you for that question. So essentially, we have the 2 full-time positions coming out of that category, and then part-time positions. It's increasingly harder to find part-time personnel, and when we do, it's tough because it's expensive to equip them with the proper uniforms and maintain training and everything else. Now, there's occasions with our most recent part-timer, Jill, where Jill Bancroft, Officer Bancroft, where it works great because she works for another neighboring town. So she has basically all the equipment, and just needs a few things. And her training is done through New Salem. So that's not an expense on us. I would say that's not the norm. We do need another full-time personnel, a full-time officer. So essentially you're really looking at 2 full-time positions coming out of that salary line, and then still having some room for emergency overtime, different events where we have every officer working, like Halloween. And I don't anticipate being able to keep a large part-time it'd be, if, I'd only hire a part-timer if it's ideal for the department and ideal for the town coverage wise. So what I see is at least within fiscal 27 is really focusing on getting that full-time position filled for that. So it'd be essentially 2 part-timers, and I'd say a max of, or 2 full-timers, sorry, and probably a max of 2 part-timers.
So are you thinking that this line won't cover that 3rd full-timer when you hire?
No, we don't have a 3rd full-time position because we haven't been able to fill a full-time position because my salary has also been coming out of the police officer wages. But now that I'm into a salaried position, we can hire another full-time officer. So essentially with me and 2 other officers is how it works. So we were kind of stuck with two people because we weren't able to utilize the salary line. So that we will be able to stay within that with hiring another full-timer.
Okay. I get it now.
Great. Thank you.
And yeah, so longevity bonuses, we don't have any eligibility this year. Operating, everything's getting increasingly expensive. I was looking at, I've gone over the last 3 years of our budget of the ledgers, and, just for subscription fees alone, whether that's CJIS, which is criminal justice information, is required. Our IMC platform, which is our report and everything, which is required. What else? There's many things. The AT&T for our wireless internet, we're almost at $10,000 just with subscription costs with that. Additionally, with the body cameras, that added another $4,000 a year. That's going to be essentially, we have the option in 3 years. I think it's a good option to get new cameras and sign another 3-year contract, which would not, and it wouldn't increase it. It would just lock us in for another 3 years at that $4,000. And thinking long term, that's the best option, because the position we ended up in before was we had body cameras that got outdated and the software got outdated. And then we ended up in this position where we had to completely reestablish a body camera program. So I'd like to prevent from doing that again. I think that staying with the same company has benefits. It's a good camera, and we could run it till the end of 5 years, and then just pay the licensing fees. But ultimately, with the way technology is, the cameras aren't going to be supported anymore, and that's generally what happens. Additionally, with hiring that new full-time officer, we have to equip that new full-time officer. Bulletproof vests are a big thing. They're about $1,200 a piece. They expire every 5 years. Mine's about to expire. Officer McGuire's is about to expire, so we have replacement costs on them. Equipment in general. There's uniform equipment allowances within our within the union contract that we need to be able to fulfill having decent equipment for the officers so that they can do their jobs. And essentially, hiring another full timer is a big expense. And then you look at training and everything too. So I think in order to keep up with the times, we have to be able to be able to buy the equipment that we need and do the training that we need. As far as cruiser maintenance, I plan on reducing our fleet. Currently we have 4 cruisers. I don't believe we have a need for 4 cruisers. One of them is not really patrol. It's inspected and everything, but it doesn't have a computer. It has some issues that I don't think are cost effective to fix. So ultimately, and I don't have a time frame on it yet because I'm running a cost benefit analysis on whether auctioning it is the way to go. If I auction it, I'd like to put the money for that in an account for a new cruiser down the line. However, it may not be beneficial because if there's only a small amount of money to be made, I also have to spend money to get that cruiser stripped of our decals, the radio taken out, all the equipment taken out. So that's something I'm actively looking into. As far as the budget line, $6,000 is a good amount to maintain 3 cruisers. It's not a good amount to maintain 4. You're looking at tires, extremely expensive, brakes, everything. Our cruisers have been really well taken care of under my leadership. It's something I'm serious about. They're all inspected. They're all had recent on oil changes. I make sure that we're sticking with the same company because that was kind of a shortfall in the past where we were with a lot of different companies. So I really want to keep those maintained because they're driven, they're used frequently. So the better you maintain them, the more they'll last. It's tough to make them last anyway because they are utilized quite a bit. Mileage, I don't want to get too far into the weeds, but mileage opposed to engine hours is a big deal with police vehicles, and police vehicles have an exorbitant amount of engine hours compared to mileage because they're always running, idling when we're doing traffic and that. Community policing, I'd like to keep that the same. I'm looking forward to some new programs. We did the community giving tree, which didn't actually cost any money out of community policing, which was great. However, we have I want to do a female self-defense class. It's been in the works. So I have money budgeted for that. We have the instructor. I just have to set the date and get that out. So that's a very helpful line to do some good events with.
Terrific. Okay. That was super helpful. So usually what we do now is just see if any FinCom members have kind of questions or clarifying nature or require additional information. I had one question for you, which was, I'm sure this is on the capital plan, which I haven't seen, but of the 3 cruisers that you envision us kind of maintaining as our operating fleet, that I understand the timing of that is still in question, but which of those 3 is the oldest vehicle, and when do you, at this point in time, anticipate that vehicle turning over? Just so we could have kind of our sort of documentation, just a rough sense of when we might see a new capital need for a new cruiser.
Well, I'd love to bring it this year, but I'm not going to because I know we're in a tough fiscal year. I do plan on bringing it in fiscal 28 because our to answer your question fully, it's a 2018. It doesn't have as many miles as most cruisers do because it was used as a chief's vehicle for a while. I think it's still up around 80,000 right now. I don't know the exact number, so don't quote me on that. But that's the one that would need to be replaced soonest. And I think staggering the replacements is extremely important too. In the past, before my time, we got like 3 cruisers all around the same time. So they all kind of went around the same time. So right now we have the truck is a 2025. The Chiefs vehicle is a 2022, and that's a 2018. So ultimately, I'd like to keep those staggered, through the years. I'd be happy to talk more about that in the future too.
No, that's great. That's a good heads up for us. Okay, Susie.
Devin, do you know if any of these lines can roll over into the next year? I don't know what the rationale or what the conditions have to be, but do any of these unspent lines move forward?
So one of them did, and so on fiscal 26, actually, this is another correction. I did add, not to this sheet, but to a different sheet. This 478 in community policing did roll over. I asked for a carryover for 26, mainly to fund that female self-defense class. It could be that there's a good amount of money left over in that. As far as carryovers, I know you can't do it with wages. And I think it's, to my understanding, it's kind of up to the accountant for if you have a good justifiable reason to carry it over. I think most of the time that's okay. However, I don't think it's something they routinely like to do.
We'll find out.
But it was.
It was for that 470 into fiscal 26.
Okay.
Or not, whatever the balance was it?
Yeah, from 25 to 26.
525.
So it was probably 522, right?
Yeah.
522, correct. Yep.
All right. Any other questions for the chief?
No, pretty clear.
So I have just a couple of comments. One is I really want to express appreciation for your clearly have sort of taken notice of some of the discussions you've been a part of about the fiscal challenges we're facing for FY27, and to bring us a budget that has a little over 3% reduction from FY26 is just is really helpful. So I appreciate you being mindful of the challenges, and then I just thought your preparation for this was great too. Like seeing your notes here in the budget document is really helpful for the FinCom. And I'm also, I'll just to be frank, I think your plan to reduce the fleet to from 4 to 3 cruisers, I think is also kind of a sort of positive development from the kind of perspective we have in the FinCom. So I appreciate you kind of pursuing that strategy. So thanks for all of that.
Absolutely. I want to optimize what we have, within the parameters that we have it, and I think, it can be without another, full-time officer, I don't want a cruiser sitting. There, that it doesn't do anyone good. There's extra registration fees, insurance, all of that. So, I wanted to go through this and really see where we can save money and that sort of thing too. So.
Yeah. That's great. I just remember I did have one clarifying question. So if I understood it, understood you correctly before when you were talking about your operating expense budget, the subscription that we have for the body cameras is a program that incorporates the cost of both the hardware and the software is built into the subscription. Is that right?
To my understanding, yes.
Yeah.
To my understanding, yeah. And
Okay.
I've read through those documents for the body. I was actually on the phone with him today because I was discussing the 5-year down the road mark because I want to get ahead of that.
Okay.
So, but to my understanding, yes.
Okay. So also to piggyback on that, then your understanding is that if we re-up with this company, again, assuming you continue to be happy with the equipment and the service, if we re-up with them in 5 years, that whatever the new subscription fee is, it will presumably include the cost of replacement hardware as well. Is that
It would be 3 years. So in 3
Okay.
years, we'd get the option
in
of
three? Okay, got it.
having
Okay.
signing a 3-year contract and extending our.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
All right, that's helpful. Susie.
And Devin, is there a general sense of when you will try to get a third officer in?
As soon as possible.
Okay.
It's posted on the website.
Okay.
I'm actively looking. We've also posted on Indeed. I've gotten some applicants. Most of them don't have a police academy. It's so expensive to send someone through a police academy. So it's not only expensive. I mean, Leverett just sent 2 people through and they got one because as soon as one graduate, how it normally works and the other individual left. So ideally I'd like to get someone who already has a police academy. And that's mainly what I'm looking for. So I'm willing to wait a little while if I have to. But I do have one applicant so far that does have a police academy. And he seems a little bit, I haven't met him, but from his resume, he seems a little bit newer to the line of work. So that could be a good option too. We just kind of have to wait to see what our candidate pool is and go from there.
Good.
Right. Good. Okay. Any final questions or comments for the chief? Okay. All right. So I've updated all of the changes you walked us through here. So we'll make sure that those get reflected in the overall town budget that we'll be working on over the next couple of months. So
Perfect.
thanks. Let us know if anything
you.
changes.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
So long.
Thank you.
All right. All right, so we've got roughly half an hour until the library joins us.
Yeah, I think it's likely she'll be early.
Okay, great. So we can switch to that as soon as we see Mary Ann. Maybe what I'll do next is ask if Haley, do we have any update on a highway department transfer request that I think we discussed last meeting was likely was going to be needed for this year, and I think the superintendent was going to be working on an exact request. But is that something that he's brought to you yet? Or?
Not yet. So I
Okay.
was out most of last week at
Yeah.
MMA, and then obviously Dave's been on the road.
Yeah.
So I'll check with him on
Okay,
that.
yeah. So we can table that till next
And
month.
just so you know, I was talking to Dave about capital planning, and I didn't want to bother him with this.
Yeah,
I'm trying to get him to get the February 1st deadline for the capital
Yeah.
planning. And I had that conversation with him Friday, and then I realized I probably should have mentioned it, but I didn't want to go back to him.
Mm,
I
I'll do that.
yeah,
Thank you.
that's fine. I'm assuming that if it was urgent that we deal with it tonight, we would have heard about it. So okay. Let's see. I guess the next thing we can talk about,
Maybe the fiscal
got minutes.
picture.
yeah, let's do the fiscal snapshot. Okay, so this is the last one that Haley put together for us. So let's take a look. Let's see. No, 113. Here we go. All right, so this is basically an end of last calendar year. All right, so Haley, do you want to walk us through this?
Yeah, so I tried to incorporate some of the feedback that I got about, more specific accounts and what the expense is versus the total budget. So you'll see that breakdown of probably, what is that, 8? Some of our biggest accounts.
Yeah.
So, we're about 43% of the way there, or at least the end of December we were. The schools are a big chunk of the budget, the employee benefits. Snow and ice removal, that we are going to be running a deficit on if we are not already. So
Yeah.
that's been eaten up. And then what I did want to call folks' attention to, and I mentioned in the trends, is the maintenance and the supply lines. So you're going to be looking at highway supplies, highway maintenance, fire maintenance, and then the general maintenance for the administrative side of town. So those are already at pretty near capacity. I know that highway maintenance, I think that was what Dave was going to be asking for the transfer from. So you can see, I didn't mention them here, but there are several accounts that are totally zeroed out, but that's because of that front loading. So things like the computer maintenance and the dog officer, things like that. Again, our budgets are very small, so there's not a lot of contingency room when something goes wrong. And that's why I think you see those maintenance budgets being so high. And we're not even halfway through the year yet. There's more storms coming, unfortunately. Mud season is coming, so I would anticipate that we'll see more transfers needing to happen by the end of the year. And then just looking ahead, and Chief Pelletier kind of alluded to this, is how do we make like that master plan for maintenance for vehicles and for buildings? So I would really like to see us kind of get a big meeting of the minds with school committee, capital planning, building, so that we can kind of assess what do we need to do, what do we need to plan for in 5 years versus 10 years, and how can we align that to grant cycles, so that we if we know, oh, okay, in 2 years in the fall, this grant is going to be open for roofs. I'll just throw something out there. So how can we position ourselves to be ready when that happens?
That's great. So I think I just want to make sure I'm since this is a sort of a template that we'll be looking at,
No, this is not.
Periodically, or I think we said once a month, maybe, I think is what we said. Yeah. So this middle category, so just so I'm clear, these represent the 8 largest sort of budget lines or categories in the operating budget. And for each one of them, we're seeing a percentage that represents how much of their current fiscal year budget allocation has been spent through whatever the date of the report is. Is that correct? Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
That's good. That's great. Okay. So yeah, it's very clear. I think I'm assuming the school line only being 36% spent is just kind of a function of how we essentially get billed from the district. Is that right? I mean, there's
Yeah. Gail had said that they do more of like a quarterly basis. So
Okay.
that's why you're gonna see that being different. And I think the
Okay.
region does it a different way.
okay, got it. Suzie.
I know that Lenny told us that the fire department front loads their highway maintenance. And I do think that that was true. Dave said some of that too. So it doesn't mean that they're necessarily gonna run out of money. Some of it is front loaded the same way, unemployment benefits and some of the other ones like the computer maintenance. Those
Yeah,
are
that might
loaded too.
that's true for Lenny, but I think it also showcases that if something goes wrong, he doesn't. But for Dave, I don't think there's as much of the front loading, except with the grader where we had already budgeted funding for that.
Okay. George.
Yeah, I was looking at the budget number. The 8,050,000, I don't think is our FY26 budget. I'm just
I
wondering,
think
you
that
might
was
have,
including all the things.
yeah, so is that the total number that's on the expense reports that,
Mhm.
yeah, okay, yeah, that the accountant does. So yeah, she puts other things in there. Okay, yeah. When I first saw it, it just kind of struck me.
I wonder
So
if that is something that we should be like mindful of, like if this is going to be sort of I don't know, misinterpreted by, especially if we start making these public, which
Well,
I think we may want to do, but should we call it something else or yeah?
I could just parse out the operating expense, um, and then instead of writing total budget, just do total operating.
I mean, is that going to be a pain in the neck for you as the person who's going to be updating? No.
No.
Okay.
So
I
what
think
did you-
that
I'm gonna say, what did you just propose to do?
Oh, I said I can just parse out what's operating expenses if that's more helpful compared to like the everything, because that's how, that's what I'm basically doing for each individual category in like that middle piece.
yeah, I think I guess the only sort of problem I'm trying to avoid
Mhm.
is a member of the public or I don't know, the sort of press is doing some story or whatever, and they inadvertently sort of pull this number and assume that that's our operating budget, which is obviously doesn't track with the budget that we pass at an annual town meeting. So I think trying to either think about maybe we call this something else, but or if you could, extract from Gail's reports the sum of the categories that do track with what's in our operating budget.
Okay.
I think that would be probably the best. Others agree with that or
Yes, if it's not too much work, Haley.
Susie?
Yeah, it does appear in looking at the 1231 report. The line, the column called allocated is this number 8050, but there's rolled over money, retained money. And so, yeah, I think that because the public mostly interacts with us around the operating budget, we should be using operating budget numbers.
And will that change the year-to-date expenditures and remaining balances that you have?
Very slightly.
Okay.
But for the most part, the expenses just look at the operating. So
Mhm.
But I'll play around with it
Okay.
and yeah, because I totally expect to go through a couple more iterations of this. It's
Yeah.
like the one we
Yes.
want.
Mhm.
I like the way it's presented.
Yeah.
I like the graphics. I like the
Yeah.
color. It's a calming color.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind getting it in advance of the meetings, but certainly if that's,
Yeah,
Okay.
that's on me because Haley did share this with me before the last meeting. So
yeah,
I think Haley, once and I think we're there basically. We've sort of settled on a format and a template. I think what you can do is when you prepare these, you can send them to the whole committee.
Okay.
That just saves us a step. All right, Susie.
Um, so this format, then I can assume that there's no single lines, not in like gross categories, but no single line that is sticking out, which is what we used to see, like when the legal went off the rails and stuff like that. So there's not a general government one here. And there are some expenses that are not so much in a single department, like police, fire. So I'm asking if there were any specific lines that were red flagged.
No, this year, thankfully, we haven't had the same legal issues that we had last year. So those expenses have gone definitely down. The biggest flags are like I said, it's either when we have to front load something or we like wait to the end of the year. But that's not really atypical. So I didn't want to include like too many of those.
Yeah.
But I think, for having like this around a couple times, like it's definitely the schools, the employee benefits, and then like maintenance type repairs.
George.
yeah, the only thing I would ask is, and I do like, this is a great format. I really do like it. And these are clearly the lines that we always need to be monitoring. But could we somehow build into this the flexibility that if there is a line that we don't normally look at, like and Susie kicked this off in my mind, like legal, if legal was going south, would you be able to have a mechanism to just pull that one out? Because I assume you're looking at the whole thing and you're obviously updating these lines, but you might spot other stuff that should be brought to our attention. So that's I
Oh
would
yeah.
request if there's an option to do that.
And then I didn't totally understand that question, but I would probably put that under trends if it
Yeah.
was something like that.
Perfect.
Or depending on that, maybe there's space enough to make like its own separate item.
I think it would be sufficient to just put it in that trends box there.
Okay.
And again, that the I think the trigger for you to put something like that for an individual line in that document should be the following, at least from my perspective. So it's not about the size of the line, but it's the fact that it's either significantly overspent or underspent relative to what we would have expected. So it doesn't fall in one of these categories of like a front-loaded contract or something or subscription. But so I think, yeah, and I think the regular practice or routine of you going through these once a month will be, I think, helpful because you'll see like something that wasn't, what hadn't been alerted to you before by anyone, but like, hey, why is this one line, only, spent at 5%? There's no obvious explanation for that given what it is. And so that could trigger for you, okay, an email or phone call or whatever, you get the explanation and then you can sort of summarize that in a bullet point here for us, that kind of a process. But I do also like these big picture trend things as well. So I'm not suggesting replacing those, but just like, you can
like augment it a little.
Yeah, exactly. Susie?
And in our meeting on December 16th. We started talking about that. It was called Set a Range and Threshold of Overspending for Expense Lines to Trigger Researching and Reporting to the committee the issues impacting that overspending. And so, yeah, we didn't set thresholds, but I think that was being left up to Haley what that would be. But I think your point that when things are underspent, like the mosquito one, the
Mhm.
invoice never came in.
Mhm.
And that, and I don't even know where the status of FY 25 is. But it could be that, if it was underspent well into the year, that could trigger like looking into it. And also as we plan FY 27, if we see that there are budgets that are not being utilized, we might be able to save money in the next year if we know that that seems to be a reasonable place to save money.
Great. Okay. Anything else on this? So this is really terrific, Haley. I think we should, I think we should be posting these like in the same place on the website where we post the more detailed expense reports. I think in many ways this is actually going to be more, I think of more interest to the public than like looking at, the detailed ledger reports. So,
Okay.
that's my
So-
view. Does anybody disagree with that or no?
Good idea.
Okay.
So I'll just change those totals then, and I can have Gail put it on the
Right.
website.
Awesome. Okay. So I think we've got our library team in here, including Marianne. So why don't we get started a little earlier on the library budget review? So maybe we can, Marianne, is there anybody else that's not in the meeting that you're expecting that you think we should wait or?
Let me
ready to go
see
now?
who's here. Do, do, do. I think we're good. There are
Okay.
3 library trustees here,
Mhm.
that I can see. So I think it's fine.
Great.
Okay. I told
Uh,
people, that we might start at 7:15, so.
Great.
Okay.
Okay. So you shared with us both a budget document and a memo, and I'd like to share those. Is it your preference that we look at the budget first and then talk through some of the issues you outlined in the memo? Is that the
Sure.
order that you want to do it in? Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Whatever works for you, AJ.
Let's do that. Okay. Let's see if I can get this a little bigger. Okay, is that readable for people?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Great.
I have it in front of me. Okay.
All right. Marianne, you've done this many times. You want to just kind of do your typical sort of walkthrough
Sure.
line by line and give
Yep.
us any sort of background or
Okay.
context that we need?
Right. So I think the first thing I'll start with is the salary lines. We, meaning the library, never put increases in the salary lines. And we leave that up to the town. So the salaries that are in there are the same salary amounts that were budgeted for this current fiscal year.
So we'll just apply whatever the approved COLA increase is
Right,
to those amounts.
right,
Okay.
yes. And then we usually count on that for helping us meet our required 2.5% budget increase in order to stay certified by the state. Uh, so, and then we have So acquisitions, that's all of the new materials that we buy. We're required to spend, in order to say certified by the state, we're required to spend 20% of our appropriated budget on new materials or acquisitions. That can include technology for patron use. Up to 10% of it can be technology for patron use. And there have been years when I've been able to do that. It can include things like things that would be in our library of things collection, like guitars or ukuleles. So last year I was able to meet that expenditure requirement in part because of a grant that I had. I had a grant from the American Library Association, and I bought some things for our Library of Things collection, and some technology for teens, and I was able to apply that to our materials expenditure and meet that requirement. I don't have that grant this year. Or next year. Serials are magazines. Those have historically been paid for by the Friends of the Library. Office and other supplies. We're going to need more supplies in our larger building. We have more people coming in, we'll have more materials, more space, more things happening, and so we're going to need more supplies than we've used in the past. Our CW Mars membership, that has a little note beside it, and that is the actual, when I made this budget, that was an estimate, and that is the actual assessment. And then I have spent, in fiscal year 23, I spent $20,000 on programs. I'm anticipating that I'll spend at least $18,000 on programs this year, and at least that amount next year. And those, we did add some money to the library budget to that operating expense allocation a few years ago for fitness programs, and then we added money another time for story time. But most of the programming money comes either from grants or from the Friends of the Library. And then we get down to the annual town meeting allocations, and so for the salaries, we've just put in the same salaries as this fiscal year. And then we asked for another 500, and I don't know what happened to those notes. In the acquisitions line, or the operating allocation. And I just want to make sure that math is right, because then we also had, this year, somebody had a $150 longevity bonus. And then that gets added to our appropriation when the town gives us longevity bonuses, and then we have to account for that both in the 20% and in that 2.5% increase. And so I don't know if that's, I just want to do that math because it's not looking right to me. And I think in the editing, things got messed up. But anyway, it's either that 23,256. Yeah, that's 500 more than the 22,756. So we know that the town's having a tough budget year. I often ask for 1,000 or more additional money in that line. I didn't want to ask for nothing, so I just decided to just ask for a little nominal increase, and to, hoping that there would then be salary increases so we could then meet that 2.5%, between that $500 and whatever the salary increases are. And then we get a little bit of money from dog tax. And then we get some state aid. I had been not spending our state aid. This year I'm spending the state aid, or anticipate spending a lot of state aid to meet some of these unanticipated budget needs for the new library. And then we get a small library and network grant from CW Mars and the state. That helps pay for our CW Mars assessment. So the trust fund is outlined in the notes, and the trustees have budgeted $4,454 from the expendable trust, the interest from the trust this year, and then they're budgeting $4,000 for next year. I'm hoping that we'll get about $2,000 in cultural council grants. I have a $4,600 grant from the New Salem Academy for this fiscal year. I'm hoping for around the same amount next year. The Community Network for Children helps pay for our weekly story time. And then the Friends of the Library always kind of help balance out our budget needs. The Recreation Committee has been contributing to our fitness class programming, and then sometimes they contribute to library programming in other ways. And the Council on Aging contributes to our programming. So that's our budget.
Okay.
Brad's the treasurer of the
yeah.
trustees. Okay. And
Hi, Brad. I see
Hi.
your hand up. So why don't we go right to you?
Okay, there's a really minor things. Somehow this report got reformatted.
Okay.
The
Is there a
numbers.
better version of this that you want to send me now that I could pull up, or are the
can
formatting
send you
issues
mine.
minor enough that it's not that big a deal?
I'm not sure I have your email.
Okay. You can send it to fincom@sheetsbury.org.
Okay. I'll set that up. But the main thing is those notes, note 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
Note 1 goes to director's salary and assistant salary.
Right.
Note 2 should be on the total salaries line. And note 3 is down at CW Mars. And they refer to things at the bottom of the page.
Yeah, I can see the details of the notes down here, but I
Yeah.
get it. Okay, so
Tell me again the address I should send it to, FinCom?
yep, fincom@sheetsbury.org.
Okay.
yeah, it's funny. My printed one doesn't have those columns in that way. Okay.
I'm
All right. Was that so Brad, when you mentioned that there were some formatting issues with the version we're looking at, was it just about the placement of those notes?
You're muted, Brad.
Oh, you're muted.
You're muted, Brad, if you're talking to us.
the row numbers on the left are a little wonky, but I don't think that matters.
Okay, yeah.
Those are the two places I saw.
All right. All right. Your new document hasn't come through yet, but
No,
I think we're okay. I don't. It doesn't sound like those are.
it's minor stuff.
Yeah, those are major issues. Okay, so let's open it up to questions. Unless Brad, did you have anything else that
No.
you wanted to share? Any context? Okay, so George.
Yeah, so Marianne, just to be clear, so when the state requires that we spend 2.5%, it's the total expenditure line.
Well, so the state requires that the library's town appropriated budget increase by 2.5% every annual.
It's called a
Just
municipal.
so line 22. When we look at ATM operating allocation, 22,756 to 23,256 needs to increase by 2.5. Is that what you're saying?
No, the whole thing.
I think it's line 23 needs
Yeah.
to increase by 2.5%. It's called the municipal
Oh, right, with
appropriations
the
requirement.
salaries. Right.
Right.
Because
And that
Mary
right now
Ann was
doesn't-
saying that the COLA increases
Yes.
end up sort of
Right.
providing some of that, a significant amount of that additional.
I knew that. I just had a little brain fart there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm just looking at this. The salaries are the big part of it, but it looks like you're going to be close. Well, we'll see.
Well,
We won't know, I don't think, until we know what the COLAs are, and we can
Right.
double
It's
check
going to
it.
be about
before.
2.5%. So if that 86,015 was 2.5% higher, then it would be 88,165 plus 23,256 gives us 111,421 divided by 108,771, right?
Mhm.
2.4. So we're close. We'll have to keep an eye on that.
So you think the COLAs are going to be about 2.5%?
I'm thinking 2.5 to 3. We'll know
Okay.
in 2 weeks. We'll know.
Okay. All right. So maybe we can look at that once we know what that is.
Yeah.
We can do that math,
Mhm.
and then if we need to, we can make up the difference in that operating allocation, which on mine is line 18, but I think your numbers got wonky somehow. So,
Okay. We just need to, all right. Just be aware of that. We don't want to get caught out.
No, I mean, there have been other towns that have had to have a special town meeting to allocate like $50 to the library so that it stays accredited, and we don't want to have to go through that.
right.
All right. I'm going to share the new version just to make sure we're all looking at the same thing. Okay. So this is the version Brad just shared.
Yeah, and that's the one I have.
Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same bottom line, so I'm not
Right.
but
Okay.
yeah. Okay. Susie.
Is there a reason that where was it? That line 17, the salary allocation is less than FY26 showing there?
Because of that $150
There's no longevity.
longevity bonus.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm not aware. So the town puts in the longevity bonuses, and I'm not aware of any. I'm not due one, and I'm not aware of when the other two staff people.
Have they been there for more than 5 years?
Well, one got one last year. Um, and then I don't, off the top of my head, I don't know how long. I don't know which of them got it. I think it was Cynthia. And I don't know how long Kristen's been there. So, so Kristen started after COVID. So 5 years could be coming up. But I don't know whose job it is to know that, to keep track of those.
I think town administrator, personnel
Okay.
board, treasurer.
Treasure, yeah, all of the above.
All right. Well,
Okay.
it's a small amount, but it would be good for us to just verify whether it needs to be added to the FY27.
Yeah, and I think, we'll do that, right? Haley, we'll do that when you're
Yeah.
creating the budget. We're going to see what the total library two lines are. We'll just make sure let's just make sure we're thinking about it.
Susie.
This might not be the right place to ask or discuss it, but we can make a place to discuss it. Do we know how the budget for the new library came in? I imagine it's not even all assembled yet, but like the general census, did it come in under budget, over budget, blah, blah, blah? Because that's another part of our town budget that people think about. So I don't know if we should talk about it at a different format, or it also is about when those numbers would be ready.
Right. And so we're not done yet. We held out half of the landscaping from the contractors bid that was our strategy, so that we would have bids that we could afford to sign. And so so first of all, the construction's not fully done and billed yet. And then we still have some landscaping and some grounds work to do. But we haven't spent all of the contingencies yet.
And do you know, like, when it all shakes out, does the state end up having their grant not as expended? Does the town's override not have to go that far? Do you know how that part shakes out?
Well, so the state is paying 75% of the actual eligible costs. And so if the actual eligible costs are, whatever those are, is how much the grant will be.
Okay.
And then the ineligible costs plus the 25% of the eligible costs are the amount that the town will pay. And it's likely that we won't know the end of that until a year from now. Okay.
That's good to know, because somebody asked me already. It's like I said, I don't think it's known yet. It's not
Right.
over yet.
Right.
And I think we just should wait to see what happens. But somebody was saying, well, maybe we won't need all the tax money. It's like, we don't know that.
Right. We don't, well, yeah, I think we don't know yet, but we're not done. And we have to remember that when we voted for the tax money, we voted it was for the construction and furnishing and equipment equipping of the library. So we've bought a lot of the furniture and equipment that we need, but we haven't bought everything. And we're still waiting. There are some potential change orders that aren't settled yet. So we're still working through all of that. And one example, there's a library that they had substantial completion and they moved in. Let me see if I can think. Last August. And they still haven't finished. Not August 20. It'll be like a year and a half before they are finished. So not last August, the August before that.
Okay.
So it'll be like, it's been a year and 4 months already, and they're not done yet. So, okay.
But I guess to Susie's question, I'm assuming there's like some kind of reconciliation process where
Right.
the funding agencies and I imagine it takes some time after the
Right.
project for
Right.
that all to kind of come together, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. April.
Yeah, I just have a question about the janitorial staff. I do not remember if that being covered in any other places, or is that reflected in your budget?
So we added funds in this current fiscal year, funds were added to the town hall janitorial. So the town buildings janitorial staff.
Okay.
So we're getting 4 hours a week of janitor service, and it's not part of the library's budget. And that's a pretty typical thing that happens in small towns, where the janitor and facilities staff are town departments and not under the library's budgets.
And you're not doing the sidewalk shoveling?
Well,
Yes, she is.
I am, but I'm doing a lot of shoveling. but we're working on that. So that there was also money budgeted for snow removal. And we're um, still, we're still figuring that out. So,
I think it's a good segue to look at the
Yes.
memo, all
Yes.
the other expenses.
Yeah, so Marianne put together a memo to supplement the library budget, and it talks about this very topic of what are some of the ongoing operating expenses associated with the new building and kind of where do we account for that in the budget. So
right,
let
right.
me share that now. Okay. All right. I guess before we get to that, you have some notes in here about the use of the library trust fund, right?
Right,
so you're-
right. So when we went out to bid, we knew that we would likely need more funds in order to be able to certify that that the accountant had the funds to pay the contractor's contract. So the library had a small trust fund. The principal was about $73,000. The trustees did a process, it's called Cy-Pray, where they petitioned the state to be able to, to say that the purpose of that trust fund, which was for the care and maintenance of the library, had been fulfilled. And they petitioned to be able to use the principal of the trust fund for construction of the new library. And so the state approved that. So that money has to be applied to the construction of the new library, and the treasurer is going through a process to liquidate it. There's still some interest in the expendable interest. And so that's so there was the principal, and then the trustees spent from the interest a little bit every year. So there's about 33,000 remaining, and the trustees are planning to spend 3,000 to 5,000 annually from it until the balance is depleted. And so we've been using, some money from that interest account to support the library's operating budget, and that's going to come to an end, depending on how much they need to spend. That's going to come to an end in 7 to 10 years. So that's one thing. Does anybody have any questions about that?
Well, so to be clear, Mariana, I'm sure I know the answer to this, but just to make sure, this is not the same thing as the new library fund that
Right.
we used to fund
Right.
out of the operating budget. Like I
Right.
think it used to be $25,000 a year.
Right.
Okay, this is
Right.
totally independent of that. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, got
Right.
it.
Yeah. Okay. So then we get into all of these questions about, so we're in this bigger library, and it's got some expenses that are the same expenses that we had in the old library, and some expenses that are new expenses. And so in the old library, when we were using the composting toilet, we would get the supplies for that restroom from the town hall supplies. So toilet paper, paper towels, well, I bought my own hand sanitizer. But all of those supplies came from town hall, and then the janitor maintained it. So I said for this new bigger library that I would handle sort of this first 6 months out of library funds. But like, we just need to know, are we going to be responsible for that? And if we are, then we're going to need funding somehow. Or is the town going to purchase enough of those supplies to stock the larger library that uses more of those supplies? And in a lot of small towns, these are things that are generally covered by like a town maintenance account. Most libraries aren't, but most small libraries in towns like Shutesbury aren't buying their own supplies like this, like cleaning supplies and restroom supplies. And the library, so the old library had a panic button. It's still there. I have to call and cancel it. The new library has a panic button, and the monitoring for that is $420 a year. Town Hall pays the bill for the panic button at the old library. Is Town Hall going to pay? I don't know what account that came out of, but is that going to continue to come out of a Town Hall account? The utilities there's just electricity, and then maybe the water monitoring could be called a utility, but the town hall will pay for the electricity, and we should, if it ever stops snowing, make most of our electricity from the solar panels. So, one piece of equipment that I hadn't anticipated, and so I just put it in to kind of just point out the sort of new level of things, as I had to buy an AED device, which was $2,400. It has a 7-year warranty, and then it has batteries that need to be replaced annually and pads replaced as used. The pads are about $100. There are adult pads and pediatric pads. And then the batteries are about $60 a piece. And $60 in some ways sounds like nothing, but I sort of, we've been collecting bottles and cans to fund the library, right? So a nickel at a time. So $60 is a lot of nickels. And then like the snow blower. So the town had a snow blower that's been being used for some of the snow removal on the sidewalks at the library. And the highway department will maintain it probably. And that'll eventually need to be replaced. So it's just a piece of equipment that we'll just have to keep in mind. I don't know how long a snow blower lasts. And then there are these, we're going to need more ice melt. And we haven't been using as much of the sort of ice melting stuff that you buy because you can't put it on concrete until the concrete has cured for a year. So I bought some, but I didn't know that. And then we are using it on the walkways that are just bituminous pavement, and then some areas in the parking areas. But we won't use as much of that this year, but we'll need to use more of it next year. So we've been using sand, untreated sand that the highway department gets, and that creates a really terrible mess. So that's not a good long-term solution. It doesn't cost the library anything, but the ice melt is something we'll use like for next winter. Let's see. Oh, so this library is going to need periodic septic pumping, and I don't know if it'll have to be done every 3rd year. I don't know how often it's done at Town Hall, but I just had that done here at my house, and it was $500. And then we'll probably need to have the carpets cleaned. I used to have the rugs cleaned at the library, at the old library, and that was paid out of a town hall account. A company that used to be in Amherst would pick them up and clean them and bring them back. So window washing, the library has those big, beautiful windows, and it's I got an estimate from a professional window washer because that's not something that can be done. They need equipment to do it, and the estimate was $1,250. And the trustees are committed to covering that until the trust is expended. And then the broadband committee wants us to have internet and security, and that's $100 a year. That $300 was an estimate. And then I just put in here, things like we've got a water bottle filling station and we'll need paper cups and filters, and we assume that'll be part of the library budget, but it's just an expense we didn't have before. So there's a lot of little expenses that add up to a lot of bottles and cans collected. So the building has a fire alarm, and the monitoring that is $540 a year. I just want to know, should that be part of the library's operating budget, or is town hall going to cover that? And then a need that totally took me by surprise is the water testing and reporting, and that's $4,000 a year. The library's well is a public water supply, and that's how much the elementary school budgets, and that's how much the estimate is from the certified water operator. The well is tested for bacteria monthly, and then all the other things that water is tested for, throughout in a schedule throughout the year. So it's, metals and contaminants and all of those things. And then the HVAC system has 16 filters that need to be changed twice a year. And that is, we got an estimate from the company that installed the system, and that was $5,500 a year to maintain it. The building committee is talking to them about sort of having some kind of service contract for all of the buildings, and that might affect it the following year. But we already have a contract for the first year in the building. We thought it made the most sense to go with the company that built the system because they were the most familiar with it as we kind of work out the kinks of it. But so those are all the different things that I'm thinking about and we're thinking about as we have this new building.
All right. So I have I'll give you sort of my kind of off the top of my head sort of recommendation around how we deal with this, but I'm obviously wanting to hear other thoughts from the FinCom. But I think what we kind of need to do is look at, I think, three I think maybe three lines that are in the town buildings budget. Okay, so or potential lines. So I'm going to just kind of name them now. So there's 81 is custodial wages. So we already have a precedent for this because we did it in the FY26 budget. We budgeted additional hours. I think you said it was four hours a week. Okay.
Yeah.
And I assume that has started.
Yes.
And is that, I'm gonna assume, since you didn't say otherwise, that seems like the right amount of time to allocate for that person's work. So
I have a question. How much time does the janitor spend in town hall in a week? So how many hours a week? Does anybody know how many hours a week?
I want to say it's like 10, but I have it in a spreadsheet back in my office and can confirm that.
Okay. So because I was, at first I was thinking that 4 hours was fine. And then I just sort of had a thought one day of, of just sort of comparing it to town hall. And we can do this for a year or a year and a half and see how it goes. I mean, if we were going to have somebody come more frequently, we'd probably need to hire another janitor. But if a building, like I don't know that town hall is any bigger than the current library,
No.
the new library. I don't know the square footage of town hall, but I think it's about similar size.
I would approach this question in maybe a different way, which is not to think about, well, what is the kind of how many hours are spent at the town hall?
Right.
How does that compare to the new library in terms of square footage? I guess what I would suggest is you take some time to ascertain whether the 4 hours that are currently allocated is sufficient to maintain the building, right? Independent of
Yeah.
what that person does at the town hall. And
Right.
and then if there's, and then come back to us if the answer to that is, well, here's where it doesn't feel sufficient, and here's what the consequences of that are. Like
Right.
here's what we would like the condition, or the building, like what sort of detailing how is the sort of current plan
Right.
falling
Right.
short of what the building
Yes.
actually needs.
Yeah. No, that's a good idea. And I think like what we can do is sort of, so we've got 6 months of this fiscal year to
Mhm.
see how it
Yeah.
goes. But then, maybe I'll take 3 months and then see how it goes
Yeah.
and see how much time, I'm spending cleaning.
Yeah.
If somebody only comes in twice a week. We asked for that amount because that is about the amount that other libraries of similar size have budgeted
Okay,
for janitors. So
that's a useful reference.
yeah.
And just to give you some additional context, the FY25 budget for custodial wages was $8,051. So we added, I think it was $5,000 which is what these 4 hours a week amounted to, which was about a 62% increase in that line.
Right.
So that might be some sort of helpful context as well. But I think to speak to some of these ongoing sort of maintenance and supply needs, I think what would be helpful is if we look at sort of what is so there's a line in the town buildings sort of category of our operating budget for electricity. That's line 83. For internet, that's line 86. And for supplies, that's line 87. And so what I think what seems to make sense to me is for you to sort of kind of pool these different bullet points you have here and essentially give us a total for those 3 lines based on the recommendations that you've outlined here about sort of what the corresponding sort of allocation or need is for each of those 3 lines. And then we can, and that what we can do then when we're putting together our FY27 budget is add those additional allocations to those town building lines. And I think what those could include are, restroom supplies, cleaning supplies, utilities, that would be the electricity line, ice melt.
Is there a line for like service contracts? Because some of these are supplies, but some of them are not so much.
So what there is there's a line for equipment maintenance. I don't know if that could be like the septic, if that would be appropriate for the septic. pumping. It's not exactly equipment maintenance, but I'm
I
trying to
think-
think of,
We have like a building maintenance account,
Yeah.
which I think would
Yeah.
be the better.
I guess that would be the other line. Yeah, you're right. Is the building maintenance line, which is, I'm
Where is it?
trying to remember which line that is.
Where are those buildings?
Yeah.
And is that like where the carpet cleaning would come from?
Yes, I think that would be the carpet cleaning. Probably this panic button monitoring.
The water testing.
The what? The
Yeah.
water testing?
The
Okay.
water testing. Did we say
Okay.
septic pumping? Yeah.
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 Okay.
And then, yeah. Maybe the fire alarm monitoring as well. I don't know.
In the
Do
window,
you know
what,
where the panic button comes from, Haley? Do you know what line that comes from?
I do not, but I
Okay.
can email Gail.
Alrighty. And then, so the internet comes out of line 86. Okay.
So sorry, the other line is this town building repairs maintenance line. That's line 224.
Is that building maintenance?
See, I think that was designed more for like these repairs that that are determined to be necessary based
Right.
on the building committee evaluation that they did.
So what's the number for the building maintenance line?
That
Not
is,
finding it.
I don't think we have one actually.
No, we do have it in our expense reports, so I've been trying to figure this out.
Yeah,
Using this form, it doesn't match up with our expense report, so we'll have to get back to that because
okay,
somehow it's not obvious.
okay.
But those were separate. The line 224 was not where,
Right.
because that was the whole thing with Becky used to handle getting repairs done at the town hall. And I
Right.
know that the fire alarm and the elevator and all that was quite a hubbub. And I believe it came out of what was called building maintenance or building repair. That was not the last line.
Okay, so there is under in that same town buildings section of the budget, there is, wait, where did it go? So there is a repairs line, which is line 88. And then there's an equipment maintenance line, which is 82. So I don't know if
Yeah, that
either
might
of
be it.
those might be appropriate places to look at, especially if like something like the panic button at the town hall is already being billed out of one of those lines. That would be
So maybe that's what we could do is we could find out what line
Yeah.
that is coming out of, and then the panic button and the fire alarm could come
Yeah.
out of that line.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
All right.
right. And I think yeah, I guess the other one that comes to mind is this carpet cleaning that you're recommending be done annually. That I imagine something like that is done at the town hall periodically, or
No, there's no
No.
carpets.
oh, there's no carpets.
No,
Okay.
there's
No,
carpets
there's-
upstairs.
Yeah, there's
We
Oh,
did,
yeah. They never
I
been
did have,
moved.
yeah, well, some of them are getting kind of thin and we're
Oh.
afraid there might be asbestos in them. But I did pay to have the town hall professionally deep cleaned, and I would certainly say that that is something we should continue to do because it did make a huge improvement with the dust that we have.
Okay.
And what line did you use to pay for that?
Well, we had also in tandem the basement cleaning, the basement project.
Mm-hmm.
So that we had set aside some funds for that, but it was only we paid less than $1,500 to have it deep cleaned, and they did everything.
Mhm.
Um,
So I guess my request, Marianne, would be if we could, so it's very helpful to have the detailed notes here. If we could now take these notes and have you sort of tabulate the you know, and the amounts that you are recommending we add to the FY27
Okay.
budget. And then if you could link them to specific lines. And
Yeah, yeah.
it may require a little bit of back and forth,
Yes,
you know, with Haley just to figure out
Yeah.
where do you pay this one out
Yeah.
of. So,
yes.
but
Okay.
so, and I don't know if you were explicit about this, but part of the implication of doing this is then it reduces the need for us to increase our new acquisitions, right? Because that's based on
Right. It's twofold. So, you know, if all of these needs are suddenly the library's responsibility and
Mhm.
the town decides to increase the library's operating budget,
Mhm.
then that 2.5% goes up, and
Yeah.
then the materials expenditure requirement goes up. So,
Right. Yeah.
and these are things that are often paid for out
Mhm.
of, you know, general town account. So it's not like we're doing something that isn't common practice.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
I can the only I mean, none of our other departments outside of the elementary school include these things in their budget. And I guess, you know, the issue with the school is that that's a very different, obviously, different
Right.
kind of a
Mhm.
different scale of budget. That's for
Right.
sure. So yeah. So I get why you're recommending it. I think we need some like concrete guide. I guess two things. We need some concrete guidance on what are actual estimated amounts
Right.
that need to be added to specific lines in
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
operating budget. That's one thing. And then I do think, in the interest of sort of transparency, I do think we probably need to be clear in the way we usually do this is by adding notations to our budget. I think we need to be clear that we're increasing, you know, the town building supplies line by this increment to you know, to account for the new expenses
Right.
associated with the new library building. So
Right.
because I think you know, the town, I think residents sort of understandably expect to have some information, you know, shared with them about what this is a brand new facility. It has new costs associated with it, and we want to be able to sort of provide that transparency. So I think that the way we annotate the operating budget is probably a sufficient, but you know, we'll figure that out before town meeting. Sorry, let me go to George.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, so which line items in this section that we're talking about are not going to be funded by town hall, will be the library? I mean, are we going to try and add all of these? Just for the minutes, I want to get this documented.
So I think there were a couple that you
See 'em.
recommended would be part of the library budget. So I guess
Yeah.
that's three.
I think that, well, I think the internet security could just be part of the library budget.
Yeah. So you said that one. You
But
said
that's going to be $100.
Right.
And then the window washing, it's a lot. And so I could see that we could cover the window washing until the expendable trust is fully expended. And then we can see, you know, and then, you know, so then we, you know, we add some things to the town budget now and save that, which is, you know, for our town, that's an unusual expense. And you know, but I think that everyone's going to want those windows to be cleaned on an annual basis. In other places they would clean the windows 4 times a year, right? But that's not going to happen. So I think that, and then paper cups and things will be part of the library budget. And let's see. Let's see. And then just that equipment, when those things like a new snow blower or a new AED device comes up, we'll come back to you. But I just wanted to say there are these new equipment needs
Yeah.
that we may need money for, but we don't need money for those right now.
Those would be more like capital. I mean,
Right.
you
Except
know,
that they're not really
no, they
enough.
don't qualify. I know, but
Yes.
we
Yeah.
generally have been using
Right.
free cash for those.
Yes.
Mhm.
But so really it's mostly mostly we're just sort of figuring out where these things fit into. And then the ice melt. I've always bought ice melt for the Spear Library, so I put that down as part of the library's supply budget.
Okay.
Um,
It's in that memo. I mean, may
It
I ask a
is.
question that's
Yes,
already
and
done?
then, and that's part of why I asked for 1,500 more in the supply line. Or I
I get it.
budgeted 1,500 more because I think ice melt's gonna be a big amount.
So AJ, at this point, the new maintenance and supply needs section, everything there is what you're thinking we're going to absorb in the town hall budgets?
Except for, I guess, the ice melt. that,
Okay.
Mary Ann just said.
It's varied. I'll go through
Okay.
and once I figure out all the budget lines and
Yep.
kind of get some good guesstimates, or estimates, then I'll separate it out.
Yeah.
Okay.
That'd be good. Yeah, and I think George, for the minutes, I think it's probably sufficient for us to say that at a future meeting, we'll discuss concrete amounts for each of these lines that are part of the
Right.
town building.
And I don't need to be specific about these lines. I'm just going to say that there was a section of what were the new needs to be funded by the library and
Yes.
what are, well, so I'm having trouble reading this, like it's a little small, but it says new maintenance and supply needs. Those are all going to be
No.
covered by the town except for the ice melter.
Ice melt,
There's also internet
window washing.
and water
And water
bottle.
bottle. Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right.
Window
Yeah.
washing.
And window
near term.
washing will be covered
Yeah.
by the library trust.
All right. No, I've got this for the minute. The only request I have at this point, the only thing I would say is, could I please have a copy of this?
Yeah, this is
Somebody could email it to me.
Who's in our?
this is in the FinCom drive.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All I need to know.
Okay. Susie.
The other thing that's going to happen in FY 26 and 27 is that the MN Spear Library used heating and electricity. And now with a net zero building that's working towards really reducing those costs, the numbers that show up in FY 26 and possibly 27 will be a change of use for the MN Spear building, which I'm on that committee. It's going to take a long time. There's a lot of discussion still going on. We don't know what that is, but I feel like the library needs to get a number, and I don't think the library does it. Maybe Haley does it. I think there's been some checking into the costs of heating and electricity, which are in the town operating budgets for the MN Spear building. And I think it would be good for the town to know that those costs have been reduced from the library's existence. But, it may pick up again depending on how the town chooses to use the MN Spear building in the future. But I feel like they need to have the credits for that.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be a good thing to communicate at town meeting when presumably there'll be some opportunity to talk about the new building and kind of what it takes, what it's going to require to operate, and where are we realizing some savings. And yeah. Okay. All right. I think this is good. So Marianne, you've got a little bit of homework, and you'll get back to us, and we'll then kind of reflect. We'll make sure that that gets reflected on these other non-library lines in the budget.
Okay, that's good.
Okay.
I just needed some guidance. So
Yeah.
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 So good.
Yeah.
Good. So I'll work on that.
Mhm. Okay.
Tedious task
Yeah.
over the next month or so, and then I'll send it to Haley and
Yeah.
you. And then if you have questions,
Yeah.
um, I'm happy to come to another meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
That
Okay.
sounds great.
Good.
Good.
Okay.
All
All
right.
right. All
Any
right.
final questions for the library team? All right. Okay. Well, thanks for joining us, and
All right. Thank you. Thanks for everything you
yeah,
do.
Thank
and
you.
congratulations on
Yeah.
Have you
the
been in?
new building. I haven't had a chance to come yet.
Yeah, you have to
I
come
was out
by.
I was out of town the opening weekend. I was sad to have missed
Okay.
that, but yeah.
Yeah.
But no,
All right.
I'll be swinging
Okay.
by.
All
All
right.
right.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Okay. My leave button there.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Oh, great. Meryl's here. Hi, Meryl.
Hi.
So we've got a quick item to discuss, and I'll fill everybody in. And so you guys may recall at a previous FinCom meeting, we talked about sort of some like long-term sort of planning kinds of questions, and one of them was in anticipation of us knowing that we weren't exactly sure what the timing was, but that at some point our current contract for our trash and recycling hauling would be expiring. And then there's a question of, well, what do we do at that point? And we wanted to sort of think about that as sort of openly and sort of creatively as possible. And that included even, sort of big ideas like, well, what would it mean to present residents a couple of different options? One being, well, here's what, it's going to cost under a new negotiated contract with maybe a new provider, or maybe a new contract with the existing provider. And here are some potential alternatives. And in the context of that discussion, I think Meryl came to a select board meeting that I attended to talk about this. And so a couple things came out of that. One, she alerted me to the fact that we actually had our current contract with Casella actually has an extension year. Could you give us a kind of just a summary of sort of how that contract works and when we actually are looking at needing a new contract with a new provider?
Sure. Our current contract with Casella ends June 30th, 2027, but we formatted the contract so that it's a 5-year contract with a 1-year option to extend. They don't, at that point, give you a price on that 1 year, but it's there as an option. And I will say that it makes a big difference whether we're looking at an RFP for a new contract for 2027 or for 2028, because I've been attending some curbside contracting group meetings with other towns sponsored by DEP. And they say you should have 18 months to 2 years to develop your RFP and go through the process. That said, so I've been thinking about it a lot lately. And today I met with Haley Bolton and Mary Glavin, who's our new chair of the Recycling and Solid Waste Committee. and we talked about some of these options. And I told them how important it is that we have to find out whether we can extend the contract by a year. And I've been in touch with Casella asking that question. The last response I got was, we can't tell you till October of 2026. And I basically said to them, that's too late. We need to know sooner. So with Haley present, I said, let's call them. And we did. And we talked to the person who handles the municipal contracting. And our current contract has an annual increase of 5% of the cost of the contract every year.
Mhm.
And I said to this guy, we need to know now. We're willing to go with the 5% for a 1-year extension. What's your response to that? And he said, I think that's doable. I'm going to talk to my bosses and I can probably get you a signed contract for the extension within 2 weeks. So that's great news, actually, for the town because it takes some pressure off. Regardless of that, though, we don't want to miss out on the opportunity to be working on a new RFP. And it's not too early to start that, even with this 1-year extension. It gives us more breathing room. The other thing that Casella said was they will more than likely, well, they basically will extend this 1-year contract for trash bags pickup at the curb. After that 1 year, for a lot of different reasons, mostly because of labor issues, their own staffing, injuries, etc., they're going to want the town to move to toters that are automatic dumping so that they don't have to have people doing that, going out and hauling them. It's just too difficult. So if in fact we have to do that, and I will say that I looked at our responses from 2022 when we went out to bid last time, Casella was the only contractor of the 3 that bid that gave us a bid for bags. And they're saying now they're probably not going to bid bags. We did design the last contract so that it had the option of bags or automated so we could compare. And the bags were cheaper. Now, I don't know if that'll continue to be, especially with, the injuries that they have to deal with. So anyway, at our last recycling and solid waste meeting, we had a subcommittee formed to work on the contracts. And it's me, Mary Glavin, and Gail Fleischhaker. And in the past, we've always done these contracts and RFP process just within our own group, and we've never had an issue with that. In fact, our contract now is a really good contract, I will say. But nonetheless, we thought we would extend to the Finance Committee because you had, so many concerns about costs. If you want to appoint someone to our committee, we would welcome them to join in. 2 things related to that, though. One is that we have put in for a grant for technical assistance with DEP. So if we get that, they will fund some expertise for people who will, help us review the contracts, etc. And then the other thing is just that we think we have a good group of people ready to work on it. And the biggest thing is looking at how, well, it's not really part of the contract so much, it's outreach to the community, but how these toters, if we have to go to that, will affect the town. I guess the issues with that is how do we structure that in the contract? Because we have 33-gallon bags, the pay-as-you-throw bags that we use now. The toters come in 3 sizes, and the smallest size is 32 gallons, which would be comparable to what we do for the bags. So there's issues related to that. The whole idea of the bags is that we really push to promote recycling versus trash that people throw out. So we wouldn't want to transition to toters to really encourage people to throw out more trash and less recycling.
Yeah.
So those are the kind of issues I think we'll need to think about. when
Yeah,
we
it's-
structure an RFP.
It's interesting. There's a couple things, right? It's like it's one exactly as you said. The bag process sort of builds an incentive for people to produce less garbage, which is good for the planet and good for costs. And but the reality is that not every household is of the same size and is going to generate the same amount of trash, and so it does also produce some revenue. Actually, I can't for people who need additional bags. I'm assuming that gets complicated in this new toter system. There isn't
Well,
really, is there an
yeah,
opportunity to, yeah.
So it would be complicated. Right now, the money that we get from raising the bags goes into the recycling revolving fund,
Mhm.
and we spend that to buy more bags. So it's,
Okay,
it works
got it.
out pretty well.
Mhm.
The thing with the toters are you could either have the contractor supply them, which is many towns do that, or
Mhm.
DEP also does have grants, but it's not every year, I don't think, for
Okay.
them to provide toters to the town.
Yeah.
Now, if we were able to get the grant for the toters to the town,
Mhm.
that's hard to say. Anyway, if we could do that, then it might be a cost savings to the town
Yeah.
to go with the toters. We're not buying bags. So
Right.
there are a
Okay.
number of issues to look in. And that's, I
Right.
guess, where the FinCom expertise and crunching a bunch of numbers would be helpful.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So bottom line is it would be helpful to have a FinCom rep join that group that's working on not only preparing the new RFP, but I guess eventually reviewing applications. Although now that's looking like that may actually be a little bit of a ways off if all goes well. But okay, is there anybody that would be interested in from the FinCom that would be interested in working on this issue and working with the recycling committee on it? You know, we've all got lots of. Susie.
I'll have to think about it, but I
Okay.
do want to say I was on the FinCom back in the late 80s, early 90s when the town had to consider was there enough money in the tax levy apportioned to trash collection to sustain the costs that were happening at that time, because of course the contracts go up and they were going up by maybe more than the kind of revenues that we were able to increase in the levy. And that piece is what struck me when we got the Casella contract, which was well organized and good. But the cost increase is not, we just took it into our budget. We just absorbed it. And that was probably not a healthy thing to do because that was a big operating increase. And there was not any evidence that we had really increased the revenue through 2.5 to help pay for that. So there's a lot of thinking that is sort of still out there.
Mhm.
And so I guess, working on the RFP is one part of the track, but there's some other things that we need to think about in terms of should this be an override vote? And as you started off this discussion, AJ, are there other options
Mhm.
that are less expensive and have other benefits that people might want to choose? So how do we look at more than one picture? And how do we make sure we have all the pieces of the picture, like the expense, the community involvement, the community failures, all those things? How do we figure out that about different options? And I don't know if I have the endurance for this right now. I got a lot of other stuff going, but I really feel it's a basic part of this adventure at looking at what trash for Shutesbury should be following this contract.
Can I can never
Yeah.
find my little hand thing, but
Go ahead, Meryl.
so the Recycling and Solid Waste Committee has, every time we have a contract and in between, look at the issues that you're talking about, Susie. We've looked at buying our own trash vehicles. We've looked at toters in the past. We've looked at single versus dual stream. And we also, our last contract we had, yes, the new contract we got in 22 was a lot higher. The contract we had last time bankrupted the company that was proposing it, literally. So we had an unbelievable deal last time, and we could not expect to keep that. Our contracts are comparable or better than some of the other towns that have these contracts. And I mean, you can spend forever looking at different options, and you're going to end up, I believe, where we are now. And we're a volunteer committee as well. So, you know, we looked at what it would mean to have our own truck and hire people to collect trash. And it just, there's so many regulations. It just made zero sense. We can look at some ways to structure this RFP. So maybe we can put in options there that will be helpful to the town. But I also believe that, you know, there's a lot of residents in town who don't feel like they get a lot from their taxes. They maybe don't have kids in the schools, whatever. And this is something that is a huge benefit to everyone in town to have their trash collected and taken, and giving people the 50 trash bags, or whether it would be a toter, is something very tangible and positive for the residents of the town that they can hang their hat on and feel like they're getting some service. If you start pulling all that stuff from people, I think you will have rioting in the streets. And at our committee meeting, you know, after we met with the select board, I mentioned to the group that there had been a proposal to look at a transfer station to the town, and every single person there started rioting. They basically voted no way. This is like, you can't imagine how difficult that is to even consider doing. Do you want it in your backyard, Susie? I don't think so. And that's the response you're going to get from anyone in town. They tried to do it near Lake Wyola, put in a transfer station back in the 50s, and that went down in flames. So, I mean, there aren't a lot of good options out there. If you keep putting pressure on this issue, what's going to happen is you're going to see dumping illegally all over town, and it's going to come back to bite us all. So, yes, you can spend time thinking about it if you want, but I really believe that what we need to do is focus on the issues related to putting together a strong RFP for the town that protects us and includes what are our different options that are going to be most palatable to residents.
Yeah, fair enough. So I think in any scenario, we need to have the best possible contract, right? Because because of the options that might be available for the town to pursue, one of them is going to be a new contract with the current provider or a new provider, and we want that to be the most advantageous contract to the town as possible. So yeah, it's and even if what we end up wanting to do is present the town a couple of options, one of them is going to be that option. So we need to have the best possible RFP process to generate the best bids that are going to provide the service that's needed for the town, and that are going to resolve some of the issues that Meryl raised with a likely new kind of process, because the one we're using right now is kind of getting outdated. So yeah, all of that stuff needs to be sorted out, separate and apart from thinking about, are there alternatives that ought to be not necessarily recommended, but like presented to the town. Like this is what it's going to cost to go down this path, and that may be well supported by the town. And if it is, we will pursue that. But here is an alternative that is less ideal in some ways, but might have this other benefit. And so it may be a simple matter, well, not a simple matter, but a matter of presenting residents a couple of different models and getting, sort of public input on what the preference is. And I have no reason to question your assumption, Merrill, that in all likelihood the feedback will be it's important and it's worth the cost. But I think from the FinCom's perspective, we want to make sure we're thinking about this, thinking about what are the realistic options that are available, and giving that information to town residents to make the call about what we ultimately pursue.
And I'll just say that, that's fine, but I'm a volunteer. I do get a small stipend, but it doesn't come close to the number of hours that I've already put in on this and will have to put in on this. So I guess my feeling is I personally don't want to spend a lot of time looking into a lot of other things. I want to focus on what I believe is the direction the town's going to go. It's just too much to ask to looking at everything in the world.
I understood.
And I also am on a monthly meeting with DEP and people from across the state who are in similar position to mine for developing a curbside RFP, contracting RFP. I hear the issues they have. I hear the approaches they have, the options they have. They talk about different aspects of developing it. And I think that's very helpful in moving forward with the RFP process. So, so I would just say if someone from FinCom wants to work with us on the RFP process, we would invite you to do that. We do not want to spend any time on that looking at lots of other options, because we just don't have the time and energy to do that. It's too, as I said, we have looked into other options in the past, and there really aren't good ones that we have come up with.
Got it. Okay. So let me do this. I'm going to give our committee until the next meeting to sort of think about their interest in joining you. And so I'll be in touch with you about who, a FinCom member that might be interested in working on this and to join your RFP group.
And as I said, we've never had one in the past. So if no one wants to do it, I'm fine with that, because we have input from DEP. We have the folks on these other committees, and we have, a strong group working on the actual document. And this is about my fourth contract that I've worked on.
Yeah, no, I think I said this to you at the select board. I appreciate that we have a very experienced volunteer that's kind of overseeing the process. So no, that's much appreciated, and I appreciate the invite. So let me follow up with you, and I'll bring it up with the FinCom again at our next meeting. See if
sounds good.
Anybody's interested in working on it. Okay, thanks, Meryl.
Okay, thanks for your time.
All right.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, guys. I'm gonna jump to an ARPS budget follow-up. So there's a few things to sort of update you on here around the regional budget. The first is something that I just noticed earlier today. There is a regional school committee meeting happening now And one of their updates was a discussion of the budget. And so I happened to see there were a couple of documents posted. So here's one. So this is the timeline that I guess the regional school committee is anticipating in terms of dealing with the FY27 budget. And you'll notice that
Could you blow it up just a little, AJ?
Sure.
I can't see that.
that it doesn't appear that there's in the timeline here a plan for another four-town meeting. So I think what's happening is they are going to be basically discussing. Okay, so then this was another document that was posted. They're going to be discussing ways to achieve budget cuts as high as $2,060,000. And I think as part of that process, they had committee members provide feedback on kind of what their priorities are and kind of what are their sort of stay away areas from the budget that they were hoping would not be impacted by these cuts. But you'll notice that the budget that at least is attached to this memo, and I'll share these documents with you, is the budget that includes $2 million worth of cuts required, and it's the one that increases Shutesbury's assessment by 0.74%. So I'm not suggesting this is what they're going to pass, but it's at least the budget model that they're proceeding with right now in terms of their discussions about what cuts might need to be required. So I'm sure this is going to be a fast moving, but I guess what I wanted you all to know is that this appears to be the budget that they're at least looking at this point, and two, that we should not anticipate another four towns meeting because it doesn't appear to be in their timeline. Okay, so Susie, go ahead.
So the other group that formed, the fiscal sustainability, they're not on that timeline. Do you know how that intersects?
Yeah, so that group is not talking about FY27 budget. That group is really thinking about sort of policy that can potentially be used to sort of help the future sustainability of the school, the regional schools.
Right.
Okay, so those are a couple of quick updates, and I'm sure I will at some point look at the recording from tonight's meeting, but so I'm sure at our next meeting there'll be an update about what they talked about tonight. The other thing related to this that I wanted to mention is that you all may have read in the newspaper about developments in Pelham. And this is another sort of fast-moving issue. I attended a meeting last week of that fiscal sustainability committee, and at that meeting, John Trickey, the finance committee chair for Pelham, mentioned that there are, I'm actually going to pull up my notes now, that there are really serious concerns about how they're going to sustain the elementary school. And I'll give you a couple of details. One is that they basically have determined that they have $135,000, which is the equivalent of a 2.5% increase in their tax levy, to spend on all increases across their budget. That's kind of how they're approaching their budget this year. So they've basically level funded all departments, and they're asking their departments to absorb to absorb their COLA increases out of their operating costs. They don't want to utilize the little bit of excess levy capacity that they have right now. And they're expecting that, this is at least from John Tricky's mouth, they're expecting all of the increase in their regional assessment to come out of the elementary school budget. So, and then the last thing is that I guess there's a group or there's been some process that has determined that there's $6.5 million of capital needs over the next 5 years associated with this elementary school. And he does not think that there's support available to fund that via an override. So all of these issues are kind of coming together to create something of a crisis in Pelham regarding their elementary school. And at that meeting, he said, I think the path that we're likely to head down is to send our kids to Shutesbury Elementary or the new Amherst elementary school and close their Pelham Elementary School. And I had heard him talk about this as a concept in the past, but I think it's fair to say that there's a different sort of level of urgency that they're dealing with now. And then following that meeting, as I was talking with Anna Harrod about, well, we ought to think this through and do some follow-up, it turns out that the Pelham School Committee met last Thursday, and there was a proposal presented by the superintendent that the new the new sixth grade academy at the middle school absorb the current fifth graders from Pelham, and so the sixth graders from Pelham next year be a part of that group, and kind of almost as a step towards the scenario that John Trickey was talking about, where all of those Pelham students would eventually attend, I think in Amherst's mind, an Amherst elementary school. So I came out of that meeting and these developments feeling like there's an opportunity for Shutesbury that ought to be examined, carefully considered. To put some details on it, there are currently 61 students at Pelham Elementary that are Pelham residents. There are 67 additional students that are choicing in to Pelham. It's not clear what the obligation of any receiving town, whether that's Shutesbury or Amherst, what obligation they would have to absorb those additional students that are currently choiced in to Pelham. I think that, according to John, that's a topic that's still being kind of investigated at this point. But I think the obvious point for Shutesbury is this an opportunity for us where the marginal cost of absorbing these, let's say at least the 61 Pelham students, is assuming there is capacity, significantly lower than the cost of whatever assessment revenue we would receive from Pelham. And I think there's some good reason to think that would be the case, because again, assuming that we have the capacity at the elementary school without having to create lots of new class groupings, right? Which I think is probably likely, but again, that's a question. That's one of the questions that needs to be answered. So now this is all moving fast. It's all complicated. You saw in the newspaper, understandably, Pelham families are not happy that this was even floated as a possible fix for or a solution for FY27 or beyond. But it does seem to me that this is if this is the path that Pelham is likely to go down, that we ought to see if this is something that could be beneficial to Shutesbury. So, well, with all that background, there's a meeting that has been pulled together by Haley for tomorrow that includes the principal, hopefully a
Superintendent.
member of the school committee, although I think I saw an email that he might not actually, or he's going to be late to that, Haley, but anyway, I'm sure you saw it. The superintendent, I think Caitlin, the finance director, actually, I think the superintendent wanted her to join that discussion, so I think she's going to be there as well. I'm going to join that conversation as well. And so there's going to be a discussion tomorrow about, I think, does this sound like an opportunity for Shutesbury? The way I'm thinking about it is it's not just a way to kind of stabilize the operating picture for the elementary school, but this could be an opportunity to improve the experiences of all students as well, right? There may be, sort of special programs and specialties that, are kind of hard to see how they would be sustainable right now, given the current revenues. But maybe if there's additional revenue with 60, plus kids coming from Pelham, maybe that becomes more likely. There's sort of supplemental programming, staffing. We ought to think of this not just as something to help the financial picture for the elementary school, but maybe something that actually, creates opportunities to have an even better experience for students. So that's how I'm thinking about it. It's a complicated issue. There's a lot. I'm sure there are risks that I'm not part of the school committee. I don't work at the elementary school, so I'm sure there are risks that I'm not thinking through, and that's why it's good to have the principal and other school folks bring them in the conversation tomorrow. So anyway, so that's kind of what's happening on that front. Haley, did you want to add anything to that, or does that?
No, that was a pretty comprehensive update. I think it's just very preliminary and just very much wanting to see, could this be a benefit to both towns in some way?
Yeah. And, I think the other thing to mention is the reason why I think I felt a little bit of urgency to get the ball going on this is that I do think Amherst sees this as something that could be potentially beneficial to them. And so I got the impression that Amherst would be, very open and excited about the possibility of absorbing these students, and they think they have the capacity for it. Actually, John at that meeting last week was like, I'm not sure if Amherst has the capacity to take on these additional students. And Shannon Bernaccia, the finance director for the region, was there and jumped in right away and said, "Don't be so quick to assume we can't do this. We've done a little bit of thinking about this." And so I think, that to me, that sort of creates a little bit of urgency to sort of get these conversations started, because if this is something that's a real possibility, and again, I don't know that, it's early, so it's complicated, but if it is, I think we would need to get moving on this pretty quickly.
Just to be clear, though, they're definitely going to be having, there's definitely going to keep Pelham School open at least through FY 27, 28, 26,
FY
27.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Exactly. So there is at least there was a thought, a proposal to potentially move the sixth graders out of Pelham Elementary and bring them into the middle school, but that's it as far as FY 27.
Can I ask a stupid question?
No. Yes, yes, you can, but there's no stupid questions. Yeah.
So you said like one of the things that they're talking about are the capital projects for the elementary school and not wanting to take those on.
Yeah.
But if they like dissolve the school, the building still exists,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, what do
And
they do?
you know, that's a Pelham problem. Not a Simsbury problem, I guess, but I don't, yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, what happens to that building and you know, I haven't heard John talk about that at all, but
Housing.
Susie.
I am glad that there's this opportunity. It will involve a lot of people sorting it out, and it's really hard for a small town to be able to do that very nimbly because everybody has jobs, etc. The thing I'm most concerned about is that the Gazette article didn't cover the fact that state aid is part of this picture, and they just left that off. They just had the other kind of specific to Pelham, but the fact that rural aid got cut, the fact that Chapter 70 is not supporting schools, feels to me that in some ways Pelham is a canary in the coal mine, and we need to understand that. And so I have drafted a letter to send to the Gazette, which I will just sign it myself, and I won't say I'm from the Finance Committee. But I have been collecting those postcards and talking to people in the library, and it turns out that that's a good PR opportunity to bring this issue in front of people. And I feel a little sad that this may be seen as only Pelham's problem. And we heard from the governor at the MMA, and she mentioned that she's proposing rural aid go from 12%, which is where she put it last time, down 25%, that she'll put it up to 20 million. And 20 million is about a third of what the reports say is needed. And I just feel like what Pelham is up against is something we all need to understand. We're going to try to get ourselves out of FY27 in one piece. There's the Western Mass Roundtable in South Hadley trying to figure this out, but we are all under this underfunding problem. And I am glad that we might have an opportunity to steer through this, because even though Pelham will put together a plan for FY27, it seems clear that there will be people who will choice out of Pelham, or some of the people that have choiced in may choice out for FY27. So there may be some sort of immediate change that we would benefit by. But to me, the significant thing about this is the funding for schools is so inadequate. And there are many other small rural communities who are right here at the edge with this. So I'm going to send in my letter probably on Thursday. And I guess I think we need to look at all the pieces that are in this picture and understand how we will steer our truck through this.
Yeah. April.
I hope we have all-wheel drive. Well, one thing that had been discussed over the years is regionalizing the 3 little schools. And, you know, I wonder if perhaps Leverett should be part of this conversation as well. Being, as Susie points out, that this may be the canary in the coal mine, and maybe there's a way that the 3 towns could work together. I know that's adding a whole other layer, but it's just something to think about.
Yeah.
Well, that's true, April, but at Fort Town Meeting, we saw a lot of people really like the idea of regionalizing. So I think you're right. I think it could very well be one of the solutions that
so
there
there
is
was
additional funding with that. Sorry.
so there was a I don't know if Susie or George, if you guys were involved in this at all, but wasn't there one of the regional studies that was done looked at the 3 towns creating their own?
Well, it was more than a study.
Right.
That was that committee that met a number of years ago, and nobody, that got stuck.
The
But
parents didn't support it, right, April?
Right.
Wasn't that what it was?
Yeah, basically.
So
There
what
was money.
What's been told to me about that was that ultimately families from Leverett and Shutesbury didn't support the proposal. Pelham, I think, might have actually, but it was Leverett and Shutesbury's, the kind of families were just too,
They like their elementary schools
yeah,
and they
of
don't want
course,
to give up
yeah.
control. And the other issue was, there was an issue about an off-ramp if they wanted to get out of it. And there was also an issue, Shutesbury wanted to consider it, but they didn't want to jump in the first year. And the other towns didn't want to give us that option. So there were some sticky points.
That's right.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess, what's changed is the financial sort of context and climate, right? Since that study was done, it probably felt like not a supportive climate in terms of state aid and whatnot. But I think the picture is probably very different right now than it was. That was how long ago? 10 years ago or something like that? Or?
Yeah, not quite 10, but getting
Everything's
close to it.
Everything's 10 years ago.
Yeah, that's right.
Unless
Actually,
it's-
it might have been. It was
might have been
2015. Yeah.
Okay. Susie, I see your hand up.
And also Lynn Grismer at the end of that last four towns started talking to me about there are different models for regionalization. Now, I don't know if that was just a lack of information compared to what people had known. Very hard to pass knowledge forward in these very many changes that happen. So there could be more to learn about them, or there could actually be some different ones. I didn't realize cognitively that Wendell and New Salem are a region in our U28. They have a regional budget. It has a different format. And so I'm going to go up and talk to Caitlin about that on Friday to understand how that works. And so this could all get very complicated if, say, Shutesbury and Pelham were to regionalize, but Pelham is not part of U28. So a lot of dancing here, and perhaps it will end up being something altogether different. Maybe it'll be a choicing. Who knows? But because there's so much to think about, it seems very hard to get anything but maybe some people that want to jump into Shutesbury for FY27 because they don't like the way it's going in Pelham.
Yeah. George.
Yeah, some of those school choice kids probably would, and some of them may even come from Shutesbury and Wendell, and it would be easy for them. Just want to point out about regionalization and what happened 10 years ago, just so everybody understands, there was a lot of money associated with that because the state was going to give us a big chunk of money. I think it was like $350,000, and that was going to help all our towns with the budgets. And so that's one of the reasons why school committee members were very much in favor of it. And when the two towns turned it down, there was some real animosity because other towns saw that the savings they could have reaped from it, they weren't able to get. And they blamed us. I mean, they certainly blamed Shutesbury. I can tell you that firsthand.
So that was $350,000, not for like technical assistance, but actual like operating.
I think that it was a carrot that the state is giving towns.
Wow.
And additional aid for funding your school if you regionalize.
Interesting.
But wasn't that also considering Amherst, Amherst Regional being pre-K for including Amherst in that region? We had that. There were a couple of different, but again, these should all be on the table.
Yeah. I think you're right, April. At least what it's been explained to me is that there were sort of two different studies that may have happened kind of sort of overlap. I don't know if they were overlapping, but one of them was a 4 towns K through 12 regional concept, and then the other was a regional district, the elementary district that included the 3 non-Amherst towns. But
yeah, that's the regionalization, I think.
Yeah,
so it's time to look at it again.
And just one thing I'm going to say is, the way funding is happening in Massachusetts, and small towns like ours, I just think the state is going to push us to regionalize and more things than just education, fire, highway, and the cost of equipment, the cost that it takes to keep our highway department with all the adequate equipment, it's just getting too great, and towns are going to have to start sharing. We'll see, but if things don't change with the funding from the state, I don't know what options we're going to have.
Right.
And it's not necessarily bad to look at regionalizing.
It's more work.
Yeah.
Another committee.
We've got young people.
It's both. I think you're right, April. It's both risks and opportunities, right?
Yeah.
Like there are certain opportunities that come from just having a school that serves
Us.
180 students as opposed to 120 students.
Exactly.
And certain things just and the even justification for certain kinds of capital improvements become a little bit easier to obtain because you've got a larger school body that's and the revenues associated with that are supporting it. Okay, so
anyway,
so there are going to be some updates to share at our next meeting. I believe, at least John told me, although I didn't see it. I didn't see it posted, but I think John said that they are having a follow-up meeting this Thursday of a special Pelham School Committee to pick up where they left off. So I think they're going to be multiple updates about this at our next meeting. All right, it's pretty late, guys. Is there anything else that I know we got a couple other things on the agenda, but maybe we ought to just table that for I guess it was just the FinCom communications update, and then seeing if you guys had any other.
And we have 2 minutes, 2 meeting minutes we'll have to review at the next one, the 7th and the 13th, and then we'll have this one, the 27th. So,
yeah. All right. We will make sure to get those done at our next meeting.
Oh,
right.
but what about,
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, what about the fiscal summit being scheduled on perhaps February 10th?
All right. So let's take a look at the schedule. Let's see.
we need to, and to have that summit, we need to sit down and look at where we are. And
Yeah,
look at
exactly.
the
We
picture.
have to. There's work to do. We got to incorporate all of the budgets that we've now discussed into a draft budget. I think that we can share.
Well, maybe we're not going to have the regional school committee one on March 10th.
Yeah.
And we can't really move capital planning up. And we're not going to do the elementary school. So maybe February 10th is for having a draft budget prepared with the numbers that we have and our discussion about some of the possibilities, and then try to do the fiscal summit February 24th.
Yeah.
Put capital planning on March 10th.
Review draft FY27 budget. Just plan for fiscal summit. And then do
it won't be too long before we start meeting weekly again.
Yeah, I think
so. Maybe this looks like our schedule for the next couple of meetings. Right? Does that sound right to folks?
Here, let me take a look.
So on February 10th, we could look at potentially a draft of the FY27 budget. I think the good news is that I think, Haley, you've been like keeping things like you've been like starting already tracking kind of these new budgets that we've been getting from departments and incorporating them in a draft. So I think we'll be able to do that on the 27th. There's going to be a lot of assumptions, a lot of placeholders. Will we have COLA
You said 2
COLA
weeks.
policy sorted out by then, George?
Yeah, we can have COLA
Mhm.
for February 10th.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
Close. That's cutting it close. I don't know when the CPI comes out.
Okay.
Pretty close.
well, at
But
least
I'll tell
maybe
you
have,
what,
at least have like a pretty good,
I'm going to use December's index. If January's comes out, I'll change it.
Yeah.
okay.
April, you wanted to see the process. We should talk about that
Yes.
maybe offline.
And also but the salary scales for FERCog for FY26 has not come out yet. So our personnel, that's sort of hanging out there.
Can we
point.
just meet the other half and not
Yes.
change the rest of them this year?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking we would have to do because it's $10,000 more or less that we have set aside.
Got it. Okay. All right,
Oh,
so I
can
think we
I-
have a plan. Sorry, Haley, were you gonna say something?
Yeah, I was gonna say if we are gonna go to once a week meetings, but is it possible, like on select board meeting nights, can we pick a different day?
Yeah, well, let's discuss that at our next meeting. As
Okay.
I don't think we're gonna need a meeting between now and the 10th. So we can talk about and especially since we don't have any budget reviews to do that night, we'll have a little more time.
Okay.
So we can look at this schedule and
Okay.
see when we might need to add additional dates to it. Okay. All right. Anything else urgent to get to before we adjourn? Okay.
I think
Thanks
that's
for
it.
staying late, guys. Try not to make this a habit.
Hmm.
I will make a motion to adjourn the FinCom at 9:11.
I'll second that. Overnight side.
Cashy, aye.
Mosier, aye.
Moss eye.
So do I.
Die. Good night.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.